But at the end of the day, they know that what makes me happy and what makes me proud is that they go through the exercise, and that they know that I'm proud of them because they performed as best as they could. They prepared, they went through the process, we practiced, and on all the entire experience of preparing and the amount of hours that we put in, at the end of the day, I can say to them, you know what, I'm really, really proud that you guys went through this and that you had a great learning experience from whatever you went through. And like, I think to me that at the end of the day is what it's all about, and I totally understand the competitiveness of the mock trial, because I coached sports before I was doing a lot of mock trial, and I know through sports it's there's win or lose, but I think in here and even in sports there's always that learning, there's always that learning opportunity that we need to stress with our students about these kinds of exercises. And if we can, as teachers, communicate that, then we've won. You win all around. So I think that to me is the most important thing. The judges, they have their own interpretation about what they've seen. So whether it's one judge or three judges, that it's always going to be subjective. And I think that we all have to understand, students, I think the teacher coaches, we all have to understand that there is an amount of subjectivity involved in this exercise, and I think that we have to accept that. Sometimes if it's your day, it's your day, and if not, oh well, you pick yourself back up and you go for it again another day. So I think for me, that's what I always try to communicate with my students.
I think for my students, the biggest thing that they take out of it is that there's factors that you can't control for. You can rehearse your case at your school, in your classroom, as much as you want, and you can plan for what you think is every eventuality, but being judged by someone who actually sits on the bench brings something different to the table. And I think they benefit most from the feedback that the judges give them. And sometimes my kids really benefit from the fact that sometimes the advice and the feedback that they get is contradicted by the next judge that they see. So they learn from that what one judge really likes, another judge might not like. And law's like that. You can't please all of the people all of the time. We had one year where our students were using the Latin terms, actus reus and mens rea. And one judge was like, I really liked how you incorporated that into that. It was really good that you did that. Keep doing that. And then the very next trial that we did, the judge was like, oh, don't bring the Latin in. That's so pretentious, really. Nobody does that anymore. And so we're out in the hallway talking about, okay, so we're being judged and we're getting opposite advice. How do we handle that? And we took from that there is a part of mock trial competitions that's kind of subjective. The law is not supposed to be subjective, but people are. And you're being judged by humans, and humans have different tastes and different preferences. And sometimes you're really going to connect with that judge and they're really going to see the point that you're trying to make. And other times they're not. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Well, I think every student knows that, you can do a presentation in class for one teacher and you get marked one way, and then another teacher sometimes marks a different way. Even if they're using a rubric, even if they're using the same rubric, people have different preferences and different tastes. And what you're trying to do, as hard as it is sometimes when you're going through a trial, is read the judge. I always remind my students, look at the judge's face. If you've got them nodding, you've got them. But some of them are so good, though, at just doing a complete poker face. So you're blind, right? You don't know if you're connecting, and that's okay. At the end of the day, all you can do is go in and try your best and know that one person may like it and another person may not. And hey, life's kind of like that too. You know, you're not always going to get the same result, whether it's in a relationship or a job or whatever. And you know, if you're looking for one experience to teach you that biggest of life lessons, that life's unfair. Sometimes you know, you go into a tournament and you think, oh, that wasn't really fair. You know, we should have won that one. Well, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but you got a chance to be judged by a real judge. I mean, how awesome is that? How many kids get that opportunity? And how great to do it now in a mock scenario when no one's liberty is actually at stake. Like that, for me last year with my team, that was sort of the big moment where they had one loss that they took kind of hard. And they were like, we really didn't think we should have lost that round. And maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I don't think to challenge a judge because it's just not my place. But I said to them, can you imagine doing this in real life? What if you actually had a client whose liberty was on the line here? And they just sort of, that was their biggest learning moment. They all just sort of gasped and went, oh, right, that's different.
I've been doing it for years, and I've not once had a disagreement with any of the people I've been sitting with, because we usually sit more than one person at the upper levels of the competition. And what's interesting is we're almost, even when we score people, 5 points for this and 5 points for the other, we almost always have almost exactly the same score. We might not have the same totals. So for example, I might rate one student as a 3 out of 5, and one of my colleagues might say that student is a 4 out of 5. But in comparison to the other students, we usually are all lined up. So it's a very interesting thing that we're so close on that. Everybody goes into it, they work really hard, and they believe they've done really well. They don't always get the result they want. They don't always win. And the truth of the matter is, it's so close. It's always so close. We're often within half a point between who wins and who doesn't win. While we have a consensus between us about who's the best, that might be different from 1 minute to the next, or one round to the next round, depending on what happened. What the opponents do has an impact. How you field a question, that kind of thing. And we've always been unanimous on, at least in my experience, on which is the best team, which is the best person within the team. But bear in mind, it's of course subjective. So, you know, if I were to say what's the best movie ever made, my opinion of that might be different from somebody else's opinion. The world's best song, you know, not everybody is going to feel the same way about every song. I talked to all the judges afterwards, and I feel the same way myself. This is the most fun I ever have as a judge, is judging moots, particularly the high school moots. It's the most fun, and it's the most encouraging because they're all so bright, and they work so hard, and they do such a good job. So I really hope they don't go away unhappy because it's just the nature of the beast that there's a winner. Someone has to be pegged.